Good morning on Wednesday, the 5th of March, 2025. It's 8 a.m. in the Gambia and therefore coffee time on West Coast Radio. On YouTube, our program is sponsored by Jar Oil.
In a world where progress never sleeps, one company stands out as the driving force behind infrastructure and energy solutions. Introducing our fuel company and cement producer, where excellence meets efficiency. Jar Oil. The company have 30 filling stations across the country that are all operating, which includes the recently completed Yarambamba and Old Yundum filling stations. And our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Along the years, Jar Oil introduces importation and distribution of cement in their line of business to diversify and strengthen their operations. Are you a cement retailer? At the moment, Jar Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market. With a focus on sustainability and innovation, we are paving the way for a greener, stronger future. Trust in us to fuel your projects and lay the groundwork for success. We currently produce over 25,200,000 bags per year. As the largest cement producer in the country, Jar Oil also targets to export cement to the neighboring countries like Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Conakry, and others. Join us on our journey to shape a world where every drop of fuel and every bag of cement makes a difference. Together, we can build a brighter tomorrow.
Well, Lare Sisay, as I said, is here mainly to talk about the UDP's press conference, which would have been the main news today, but for that seismic decision by the National Assembly. But we'll have to begin by asking what he makes of the vote to continue to deny Gambians abroad their right to take part in elections in the Gambia. After all, Larry, this is one of those major issues, huge issues a UDP government will have to deal with should it come to power. So what's your position on yesterday's vote?
Well, good morning again, Peter, and your listeners and viewers. UDP has been very consistent in saying that the Gambian diasporan community has to vote. I think that consistency is still there. What happened yesterday in the National Assembly, as you correctly put it, is a seismic shift of certain individuals who actually agitated for this diasporan vote to happen before they came to power. But as the two gentlemen have said, I think there is a latent fear in the NPP that the diasporans are against them and that enfranchising them could lead to the diasporans voting against them.
That's difficult to argue against, though, because I mean, if they were confident that the 200 plus, or the majority of the 200 plus Gambians abroad, would vote NPP, why wouldn't they go for them?
Yes, but I suppose it's all a psychological thing. Yeah, when you have in your mind that a certain section of our society is against you, I don't think anything can convince you that they are not against you. What they are miscalculating is the potential support they could have in the diaspora. Now, back to the penultimate question you asked. I'm still personally reeling from yesterday's decision in the National Assembly. Reeling from it in the sense that I cannot even imagine how, by example, Guinea-Bissau can have diasporan voting and Gambia is saying no to diasporan voting. I think Gambia has been independent 10 years before Guinea-Bissau. Not to denigrate anything from Guinea-Bissau, but to say that a country that has gone through a civil war and all of that and now has an ace against us, upon us on democratization, tells a lot about this government.
Well, as I explained earlier, Lare is here to talk mainly about the UDP's press conference on Tuesday, the party's first this year. It was addressed by the Party Secretary General and leader, Alhaji Usainu Dabo. 7 key points that Lare would have liked us to discuss today. Unfortunately, we do not have the time, so we will just start and continue on Monday. So we are announcing that, God willing, next Monday, Lare will return to continue the conversation because he has at most 13 minutes before the next program kicks in. Why did it take so long for the party leader to give a press conference?
Well, Peter, as you know, when things roll over from one year to another, and you have a budget that was presented in December, we needed time to look quite seriously at what has been presented to Parliament and to Gambians. And certain things also kicked in, which made it virtually impossible for the press conference to be held earlier than this. All the same, you just played a clip from the party leader's press conference yesterday. Mm-hmm. We have a very serious concern about how the country's resources are allocated and spent. And that is born out of the fact that we have seen an exponential increase in public spending by this government. Public spending that is not backed by resources that this economy can produce sustainably. A $52 to $53 billion budget per annum, when you compartmentalized it, and I'll give you percentages. Mm-hmm. When you compartmentalized it, 42% of the budget goes to government operations, 42%. 37% of the budget goes for development financing, and 20% goes to debt service payments. When you put all of that together and you break it down to its barest minimum, mm-hmm. what you have is that 19.67 billion is spent for development, which is the 37% mm-hmm. of the budget. 20%, which is 11.2 billion, goes to debt financing, mm-hmm. and 42% of the budget, which is 22.29 billion, goes to government operations. Now, anybody, including our development finance partners, should know that a budget like this is not sustainable. We've seen quantum increases in certain expenditure items, for example. When you look at the subventions for fisheries, tourism, and water resources, the subvention is almost around 110 million. Now, you look at the subventions to the Office of the President, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and all of those other ministries.
Works and infrastructure.
Works and infrastructure. The 1.09 billion that is allocated to the productive sectors of the economy, you have to compare that to about the 10.6 billion that goes to operational costs. Now, when people think about this thing, you realize that our productive sectors are being underfinanced, and most of the others activities in the President's office and in the general administration of the country are bloated. What does that mean in terms of numbers?
What does it mean?
What does it mean? It means that this government is planning to spend 353 million on fuel and lubricants in 2025. They will spend 800 million on vehicles, new vehicles. The People's Store had an allocation of 50 million. But let's contextualize that also. That 50 million when you compare it to what was budgeted for in 2023.
My understanding is it's been revised slightly down to 45.
Yes, whether it is that or not, our bigger point is 2023 it was 10 million. This year, the allocation that is earmarked.
2024 was 30.
Yes, yeah. 30 million. This year, they are going to around 50 million. But in 2023, 10 million was approved, 61.3 million was actually spent.
Oh, wow, really?
Yes. 10 million approved, 61.3 million approved. That's what has been spent.
Goodness me.
Yeah. Now, 2024, we don't know yet because that was kept blank in the estimates. The point to be made is...
Well, might that have been deliberate?
Well, I don't know whether you can call it deliberate or not. I call it political. You cannot allocate somebody 10 million and ends up spending...
No, I mean omitting the actual cost for 2024.
I think that is deliberate. It's very deliberate. They may come out with it, but the fact that it hasn't been put out
captured
there in the public domain suggests that it is deliberate. The bigger point is nobody should be spending that kind of money on the president's Meet the People store. It's a political activity as far as we are concerned.
We meaning UDP. Because they deny that it's political. They say it's actually necessary. And that the benefits far outweigh the complaints of the opposition.
It is political. When you see a government minister on a Meet the People store issuing out checks to people in a rally setting, that is political. Let's go back to Jawara's time. When he was doing this Meet the People store, he only goes with people that are on the ground where he is. And it was not a question of walking around with large sums of money to be distributed. He only requires the regional leaders in the various government institutions to meet him, talk to him, and notes were being taken ferociously to make sure that everything that the farmers are saying is captured. We are not seeing that in this Meet the Farmers store that the president is talking about.
Well, they're talking about collecting data for development that is only possible through an activity like the Meet the People tour.
What kind of data? How many people are going to vote for NPP, or how many people are going to do what kind of farming?
They didn't disaggregate the data.
Can they depend on the National Statistics Office to give them that kind of data? You need to spend 61 million in 10 days, 15 days to do that. Come on, it's not on. The other eye-popping figure is $200 million is being allocated for entertainment. 200 million.
Entertainment?
Yes, 200
How do you mean?
Entertainment, that's how they put it, in entertainment.
In the budget?
In the budget, yes.
Oh.
Entertainment, 200 million. So we are saying we need to be much more serious in how we spend these resources. Especially when you put it within the context of globally what is happening and the impact of what is happening globally on our sub-region, the Africa region, and our sub-region, ECOWAS. If you cannot manage your resources properly, your chances of survival are limited. These things are like existential threats to us. So we need to also rationalize how we spend the resources that are put at our disposal, and how we do that will depend on how seriously we look at the productive sectors versus the other side of the equation. And for me, that is what we are more concerned about in this budget. Now, if you look at the productive sectors, Ministry of Agriculture, The allocation is 961 million. Ministry of Youth, 135 million. Water resources. Water resources and fisheries is 561 million, and tourism, 54 million. Mm-hmm. These are the productive sectors of the economy. Now, when you look at all of that in composite, mm-hmm. and the government tells you we will be growing at average 5 to 6%, and then globally, the World Bank is telling us, in terms of their global economic outlook, that growth is going to be sluggish and it will be around 2 to 3%. How do you balance the 6% growth, 5 to 6% growth that the government is predicting to the global trend, which is 2.3%? And for a resource-poor country like us, it's actually mind-boggling how you come to say we are growing at 6% or 5 or 6% a year. Now, that brings me to data manufacturing. A lot of countries are discovering that governments either underreport or overreport depending on the circumstance. And Senegal next door is coming out with
case in point.
Fantastic points that should be very instructive to Gambians. And that is, how much of our deficit financing are we actually being told? 1. 2, what is the composition of our national debt? Because every time our macroeconomic authorities talk, they tell us our national debt component is about 46 billion. That has been pondered around for the last 3 years. And if that is the case, then that means that they are not contracting any new loans. And the fear is, if you underreport on that, at some point when change happens, some things are going to be discovered, a la Senegal.
Yes.
And it's a very fearsome situation.
The situation in Senegal, they're retrenching
yes,
thousands of workers,
and
we don't yet know how many ultimately will be kicked out of the job.
So I think some of these figures need to be red flags to our development partners for them to understand that they depend solely. You can't blame them. Mm-hmm. They depend solely on what the government feeds them in terms of the statistics of it. Mm-hmm. But then when you compare that to the global trends, sub-regional trends, it should raise a red flag. And that red flag should be raised.
Unfortunately, Lare, I'll have to stop you there. Lare will be back on Monday, God willing, to continue, looking at, some of the talking points of the party leader, Alhaji Ousainou Darboe, during the UDP's first press conference of the year yesterday. Thank you very much for listening to Coffee Time with Peter Gomez this Ash Wednesday, the 5th of March 2025. It's also the 5th day of Ramadan. It's the birthday of my darling wife, Jacqueline Gomez. And Pastor Forbes, thank you very much for the... Sorry?
Say happy birthday to her.
Will do. Pastor Forbes, thank you very much for being the first to wish her a very happy birthday.
In a world where progress never sleeps, one company stands out as the driving force behind infrastructure and energy solutions. Introducing our fuel company and cement producer, where excellence meets efficiency. Jar Oil. The company have 30 filling stations across the country that are all operating, which includes the recently completed Yarambamba and Old Yundum filling stations. And our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Along the years, Jar Oil introduces importation and distribution of cement in their line of business to diversify and strengthen their operations. Are you a cement retailer? At the moment, Jar Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market. With a focus on sustainability and innovation, we are paving the way for a greener, stronger future. Trust in us to fuel your projects and lay the groundwork for success. We currently produce over 25,200,000 bags per year as the largest cement producer in the country. Jaha Oil also target to export cement to the neighboring countries like Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Conakry, and others. Join us on our journey to shape a world where every drop of fuel and every bag of cement makes a difference. Together, we can build a brighter tomorrow.